Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio with my dad and co-host, Alex Urbina. And today we are going to be talking about being present in your relationships. So what does that look like to you? What does that mean? I feel like a lot of people are probably hearing that and they just assume that they're already present in their relationships.
You know, being present, simply put, is allowing yourself to experience your experiences in real time, like what's happening in the moment. And recently, probably about a month ago, I saw an image that really caught my attention to this topic. And you've probably seen it too. And it's an image of a parade or an event or something that's happening in the street. And along the sidewalk of the street, there's these fences, you know, those metal fences that keep you away from getting on to the street or interrupting the event. It's where everybody gathers around to watch whatever is happening. And in this image, there's a bunch of people, all different ages, that are watching this event. And there's right at the front, just barely reaching over the top of the bar, is this little old lady, like this, grandma face, staring in awe of whatever is happening and what everybody's watching. And everyone else around her, there's a sea of people that are also watching the event, but they're watching it through their phone. Everyone's got their phone up, and they're either videotaping it or they are taking a snapshot of it or a photo of it. But everyone's eyes up on the phone and the screen watching what's happening. And this little old lady doesn't have a phone. She just has her arms up on, resting on the bar. And her face is captivated by whatever is happening. And to me, that image is what's the symbol for being present and being in the moment and experiencing your experience of whatever is happening, while everyone else is watching it through different lenses. They're watching it through the video. They're in their mind, trying to figure out how to technically capture the event rather than experiencing the event.
Yeah, when I think about experiencing your experiences, I imagine, and my brother told me this about a year ago, and ever since then I noticed it a lot more. He told me that you can always tell when somebody's listening to you and paying attention to you, and when they're not, simply by seeing what they say or their reaction, their response after you're done saying what you're saying. He said if they have an immediate response right after to what you were saying, they probably weren't listening to you. It means that they were in their head the whole time you were talking, thinking, how can I relate this to me? How can I give an example as to a time this happened to me? Or what can I say to this next?
I think we all do that to some degree because we're trying to figure out how to respond in a way that is contributing to the conversation. I know that you and I do it, especially when we're on the radio, because there's no room for dead air. We have to keep the conversation going. So we're listening from, all right, how do I contribute to that? How do I add to that? How do I, piggyback off it? So there's some analytical skills going on while we're listening. But in a conversation where me and you are sitting across the table at a restaurant and you're sharing something very profound with me, or something that's sacred, or something that has meaning, and I'm in that relationship with you and I'm sitting across the table from you, I might not necessarily in the moment need to go to my brain or my mind to think of an answer, rather than just allow myself to be present in the moment and actually hear what you're saying, being the sounding board or just being the space for you to get off your chest whatever it is that you need to say.
Right, and in my experience, when I'm talking to somebody, another way I know that they are not listening or not paying attention is they are so willing and ready to offer advice or offer whatever it is they were thinking about. But if they would have listened to me either in the beginning or the end, to hear me say, and I'm not looking for you to fix this, I'm not looking for a response, I just want to vent. I just want to say this and get this off my chest. You don't have to fix it. And I say that sometimes and I still get, responses, and this is what you should do, this is what I would do, and it already automatically makes me feel like I wasn't being heard.
Absolutely. And so when we're talking about being present in a relationship, especially in a family relationship, especially moms and dads in relationships with their sons and daughters, what do you think's essential about being present when it comes from the child's perspective? What are you guys yearning for when it comes to being present? What do you need from us when it comes to being present? And what does it look like?
For me, it looks like a parent offering some type of support. So if I can give an example, it would probably be something like if I wanted to pursue a new sport or a new art or whatever it is as a young kid I want to start doing, I'm looking for support instead of, them either writing me off or saying, well, what's wrong with the sport you play now or anything like that. It just is exciting. I remember when I was younger and I told my mom, oh, I want to play softball. She right away went to the little book, that little Santa Clarita Seasons book, and found the softball league and said, okay, your dad's going to take you to sign you up next Monday. That's when the last day is, or whatever. Stuff like that kind of, it's just supportive of the things that I need or the things that I want.
So it sounds like what you're telling me is that what you're looking for from your mom and dad when you're engaging in a conversation or sharing or opening up is that we're listening from a place of contributing to what it is that you're telling us rather than having an automatic response or a judgment or coming up with something rather than grabbing onto your idea or whatever it is that you're sharing and then moving it forward. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I remember being little and being afraid to ask for things or being afraid to say something because I didn't want to be judged or get in trouble, especially through my parents. So if I said, I don't want to play softball anymore, now I want to play soccer, and my mom says, but why? We've already spent so much time and energy on softball. Now I'm thinking, oh, maybe I don't want to play soccer anymore. Instead of, okay, great, let's sign you up for soccer.
So instead of allowing the space for you to share in that moment without having to have our own fears be projected onto you is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So creating a safe environment for you to share and contribute and open up without me telling you, why don't you like it? Or, hey, you're so good at it. Or coming back with some reason why I don't want you to not continue playing or not wanting you to quit, but allowing that space for you to be okay with saying, hey, I want to try something else. And then later on, if I want to maybe plant some more seeds, I can do it after I make it okay for you to want to choose something else rather than having you choose something that I feel you should continue to choose.
Yeah, in my imagination, I can imagine a parent sitting there online, signing them up the registration form, and saying, "Oh, by the way, don't you like softball anymore, or do you want to try something new?" You can still get your questions answered without immediately shutting them down. And another thing, as you were kind of explaining that, I guess another thing I'm seeing kids wanting is their parents to not make everything about them. It's your kid wanting to switch sports or arts or whatever, schools. It doesn't have anything to do with you for the most part. It's something that's going on with them. And I think a lot of parents try to make everything about them.
And I love that. It's a different topic when we're talking about our fears as parents. Sometimes we bring our fears into the relationship and we project it onto either our kids or onto the subject that we're talking about. But it's a great point. And the point is that what if I had parents that were able to create a safe space for me to figure out and navigate my journey without them deciding that they're bad and wrong or they're not doing something right, and then bringing all those fears into the relationship? What if they were able to just allow the relationship to unfold the way it does and let our kids have their journey and to make it okay to change your mind? Or make it okay for you to decide that now today you don't like baseball and tomorrow you want to play soccer.
Yeah, and I think it kind of ties a little bit into the being present part, because as a parent, if you're present, you'll see that. You'll see that your response is about you. It's not about your kid.
But some people, even if they're present and see that, they're not open enough to be able to recognize that it's my stuff. So it's a great conversation to have is what if, you being present is you noticing it, but you're not conscious enough to notice that is me and I'm bringing my fears into this. So there's a little more deeper work that I think we need to do to be able to see that. But one thing is, before you can see it, you have to be present. Another thing about being present that I want to land this distinction is that you really have to be a great observer. And this is why. When you and your sister were starting to become preteens, there was a period there where you guys started to turn inwards. And I really had to make a conscious effort to be a good observer and stop whatever I was doing, whatever I had preoccupied in my mind, to constantly look over at you guys and to do a check-in, to be an observer, to see what's going on. And I had to do it intently. And I had to do it often. So 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 12 times throughout the day to look over at you when you're, tying your shoe, or when you're, on your way, grabbing your notebooks on your way out to school, or you're walking back in and you're making yourself a snack. I always constantly have to keep turning and be a great observer and watching what's going on, so that one moment that I recognize that something doesn't feel right, or you have that one expression on your face that if I'm not present and don't see, then I can't be an invitation to say, hey, what's going on? Do you want to share? So for me, it's a constant observing of the people that you say you love most, to see if you can recognize any red flags, or see if you can recognize some smiles and joys, to kind of validate and measure where you guys are in your relationship.
Yeah, I can see how, going back to painting your picture of, let's say, for example, you have a kid who comes home every day and makes himself a sandwich and watches TV and then does their homework, and, they have this whole routine, and then one day they turn, let's say, 13, and one day they stop doing that. They make a sandwich, and now they go to their room, and they eat their sandwich in their room, they do their homework in their room, they do everything in their room. They live their whole life in their room until it's time for dinner. Because that's what I did. I do that all the time still. But there's that right there is already something that you should notice, or you should have already noticed as a parent. Okay, now they're starting to get older and they want their privacy. Now you have to reinvent your parenting and figure out what else is different about them.
But that's what conscious parenting is being hyper aware, hyper observant, and noticing those little things. Not to the point where you're up in your head and you're freaked out about it. You're just observing it from a neutral place until you notice a certain trend that seems different. And then a lot of times, as I'm observing and I'm noticing and I'm aware, and I see a certain look on your face, or I say, hey, good morning, or hey, how's it going? And I get a different response. And through my observation and through my ability to be present in that moment, experiencing my experiences, my gut will tell me something. The experience of my intuition will say, hey, that didn't sound right. So then now I'm following behind you back into your room, and while you're trying to close the door behind you, I'm going, hey, no, seriously, are you okay? I'm fine, Dad. Even in the tone, I'm fine, Dad, it still sends off some more warning signs to my intuition and my gut that you're not okay. And so that's what we're talking about. We're painting a picture for you to see if you are in your relationships and showing up that way. Are you really observing and really present and in the moment and hearing everything? You're experiencing all of it, the audio, the visual, and the feelings, the emotions. Are you tapped in and tuned into all of it? Because that's how deep you have to get when you're a parent, when it comes to making sure that your kids are winning, or they're progressing, or that they're moving forward. And I think quite often when parents aren't tuned in, when they're tuned out, they're missing some of those warning signs. They're missing some of the red flags. And then when their kids are now 16, 17 years old, and they're in risky behavior, when they're now, smoking pot, or they're having sex at an early age, or they are using drugs, and all of a sudden now it's, oh my God, look what my kid's doing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's easy to kind of pinpoint that type of behavior, especially like if your kid's doing drugs, it's a lot easier to
Well, that's because
pinpoint.
it's the extreme, right?
Right. So not that it's easy, but it's a little bit more obvious than your kid going through some form of depression or anxiety or any other type of thing that could send your kid down that road. So if you can catch those signs early, just simply, like you said, by observing or paying attention to what your kid's doing and different habits that they do, you don't even have to worry about those other signs, because it could possibly not even get there.
But here's the thing: when you're unconscious, it's more like a task. Like, I have to keep an eye on. I'm keeping an eye on my kids.
But
when you're conscious and you've learned how to become present in the moment, it's almost like breathing. It's not a chore. It's not a task. It's something that happens naturally. You're just naturally present and in the moment, no matter where you're at. I can be at the computer, and sometimes when I get really locked in, I tune out and I check out. But there are some times that I'm really hyper aware. I can be in the computer and feel the energy in the room and know when you guys come in and when you guys come out, or something doesn't feel right. And so now I'm wondering why I'm walking down the hallway and making my way into one of your rooms to do a check-in on you. So it just depends on your ability to really be present and in the moment, and it takes a practice.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say is there is, like you said, being unconscious and doing it because it's a task. There's also being unconscious and doing it because you're controlling, or because you want to organize and figure out your kid's life for them instead of letting them do their thing and have their own experiences.
That's a great point. And so before we go on a break, let's just break this down. When your kids are little, the only parenting style you know how to be is controlling, because you're the boss. You're el jefe. You're the one that makes the calls and you make the judgments for your kids because they don't know how to do it for themselves. So you're in the controlling style parent mode. When they start to have a voice, 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, they start realizing, I have a voice now. And I want to use my voice. And I'm going to now start to use my voice and my mind to navigate my own self. And so now them starting to find a little bit of that independence and wanting to flap their wings, that doesn't go good with the controlling style parenting system. They've outgrown that. As a conscious parent, the conscious parent realizes and is wise enough to realize this controlling style parent model isn't going to work for me anymore. I have to reinvent my style. So what happens now is the conscious parent realizes I have to shift from the controlling style parent into the coaching style parent. The coaching style parent does more of questions. Instead of telling, we're asking questions. So what does that mean to you? How are you going to handle that? What's next for you? What are you going to do? Do you need my support? So you are now, instead of controlling your kids, you're now learning how to empower and inspire them to be able to make powerful decisions for themselves that ends up creating great results.
Yeah, and real quick, going back to the controlling parent, when you were talking about, kids flapping their wings, it doesn't really work with that. The way I imagine it is, the parents have this box of control, the things that they can control, and to them, they put their kids in there, and all of a sudden, your kids are trying to flap their wings, and they're hitting all the corners of the box because they can't get out. And it's kind of like just a symbol for your home. If that's how your home is, and your kids are always at home because you let them go to school and that's it. You don't let them hang out with their friends, or you don't let them hang out after 6 or dark or whatever. It leads to your kids not really having any wings at all. So when you say you're 18 now, go fly, they don't know how. And I don't want to say it's your fault, but it's a result of your parenting. And
better way to say it is, take responsibility for it. Own it. That, hey, this went down on my watch. My kids turn out to be the way that I allow them to be. When you're looking at your kids and they're struggling, or when they don't have that perseverance, they don't have those wings, you got to ask yourself, at what point did I not create a bigger box for them to flap those wings to be able to be strong enough for them to carry themselves in flight?
Sounds great. We'll get back to it after the break. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
Suffering from